Hello, everybody. My name is Jordana McGonigal. I am the CEO of the Recon Network and presenting host of the Vet Summit. And it is my pleasure today to have you with our next guest, Craig Washburn, who is the founder and CEO of VTC Veteran Tax Credits. And today we are going to be talking about how you, companies, can make money, actually have a revenue stream, well, I guess not a revenue stream, a credit stream for hiring veterans. So Craig, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Absolutely. So let's get started. Can you kind of just tell us a little bit about your own background, yourself, and how you got involved with tax credits?
Sure. So I guess I'll start with the beginning. I am a veteran myself. I spent 4 years in the United States Navy during the first Gulf War. In fact, I was 2 weeks into boot camp when that war was announced. So it was a fun and crazy time. Spent the first 2 years in a helicopter squadron that was designed to go out and chase submarines, and then moved over to an aircraft carrier for my final 2 years in the Navy. And, I kind of went in with the decision that I was going to just do 4 and not have a full military career, but, to give my time to my country and prepare myself for the rest of my life. And it was an amazing time. And I built some skills and disciplines that have served me extremely well through the rest of my working career. And very, very proud of the time that I spent in the Navy. Post-Navy, I went back to college, started down kind of a finance track, and then moved into some companies where I was able to take advantage of that and offer my services and skills. Started working with companies on their financial planning and things of that nature, and then moved on from there into the world of insurance and health insurance and worked for some very large companies. And again, kind of drawing back on what I learned in the military, I really put my head down and I did everything to the best of my ability, and that served me well, and moved into positions of leadership and did that for quite a long time, and then decided I wanted to take control of my own destiny and felt like I would be able to have a bigger impact on the business community and the people that I serve by opening up my own company and working with businesses to help solve problems for them. So I launched off in 2007 and opened my very first company. And then through the iterations of that business and some volunteer work that I did, I ran into an opportunity to help both veterans, the military community, and businesses all at the same time, and really marry all of my passions in VTC.
So how did you get involved with this kind of work and into your own experience as a veteran? Mm-hmm. Must have played into that quite a bit. So at what point did you kind of realize that this was a thing that needed to be explored a little bit more?
Well, so it came really out of the blue. I got out the end of '94. So, I've been out of the military for quite a long time. And about 5.5 years ago, through just a random meeting, I heard about this program that gives employers tax credits for hiring veterans. And I was taken aback at first. I was like, what are you talking about? Are you kidding me? Veterans come with tax credits to companies that hire them? So I was like, at first I said, why don't I know that? As I kind of settled on it a little bit, I'm like, I started thinking about it from a lot of different perspectives. So number one, I was working with a nonprofit that helps transitioning military and veterans that have been out for a while that are transitioning careers with getting ready for that next career, right? Through resume prep and mock interviews and networking and developing relationships in the business community that want to hire veterans. So I was already kind of in that space, in that volunteer capacity. So I was thinking about it first from a veteran, the ones I was working with, and then thinking back to my own transition time and the challenges that I faced as I was trying to figure out and navigate how do I translate military career into civilian speak so that companies could match the, have the correlation to see me as a viable candidate, at least enough to get an interview with. And I'm thinking, if I'd known that I'd come with a tax credit years ago and all the companies that I worked for or was applying for, and I could have brought that to them, that could have given me an edge that, helped set me apart a little bit. And, in addition to everything else that I brought to the table, oh, by the way, I've got, I come with a tax credit that your company can use for whatever you use it for, whether it's reinvesting back into your recruiting program or whatever you use the money for. It's true money back to your P&L. And I'm like, so, from a vet perspective, I was just amazed that I didn't know about it. And then from, a hiring manager perspective, all of the companies that I work for as a hiring manager, I hired vets. I knew the value they brought to my team. And I was like, that was money that went wasted, right? If they came with money and I didn't know about this government program where I could have applied for that money and got money back into my P&L to help me the next time I needed to hire somebody, I wasn't the CEO, I wasn't, one of the shareholders, but, when you're in a position of leadership and you're responsible for P&L, wasting money is not a good thing, right? Because that's the engine that helps our businesses grow and helps us have impacts to our communities. So I was frustrated from that perspective. And then, the company that I owned and ran helped other companies with HR solutions. And this is an HR program, right? It's for hiring people. There's money available for hiring certain people. I'm like, I should be telling my clients about this. And, so frustrated kind of across the board, but initially I took ownership of it. Hey, I just must have been dragging my knuckles, I'm a Neanderthal the past 20 plus years, not paying attention. And I took ownership of that. And I was frustrated. But, I started reaching out to vets, lifelong friends that I served with, people that I was working with in the nonprofit space, and asked them what they knew about the program. And every one of them had the same reaction I did. Are you kidding me? What are you talking about? We come with tax credits? I'm like, well, yeah, that's what I'm finding out. And so I was like, okay, there's obviously a delta in the communication side on the veteran side. And then I started reaching out to my clients. I said, hey, I know you hire veterans. I've sent some of them your way. Right. How did you guys handle the tax credit? And, the vast majority of them gave me the same blank stare. Tax credits. We can have tax credits for hiring veterans. Apparently you do. And there were a couple companies that had done it and tried it, but got frustrated because of some of the complexities in it. And, for anybody who's ever done government paperwork, you can probably understand that, right? And so, they tried it and gave up on it because of some of those challenges. But most of them didn't know about it. So, I went straight to the source. I called up the DOL, and then I talked to the workforce agency in Texas where I was headquartered and said, tell me about this whole veteran tax credit thing. Because it's, I've got a little piece of it, but I need to understand the program. So they kind of walked me through the program. I'm like, man, this is an amazing program. Why don't I know about it? And, the answer they gave was a pretty simple one. This program has been around for 7.5 decades. It started post-World War II. Now, I'm sure back then, there was probably a lot of communication that went along with helping, all of the tens and hundreds of thousands of men and women that were serving during World War II come back and transition into our workforce. But over time, it's time unfortunately has impact.
Right.
The other issue is it's a federally funded program, but each state manages their own program. And some states are better than others, but all of them are working with limited resources. They have small teams, not a lot of personnel, and they do the best that they can. But it's like a lot of those government programs out there that we never hear about, right? It's out there, it's available. If you know about it, take advantage of it, right? Unfortunately, our government is not a very good sales and marketing organization. I mean, outside of politics, everything else, they don't do a good job of putting 10 commercials on your sitcom you're watching that night that tells you about veteran tax credits.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was an answer, but it wasn't an answer I liked. So, I thought, I'm thinking to myself, how do we fix this? Because I'm thinking about it from a veteran unemployment perspective first. This is an amazing way to help incentivize businesses to get a firsthand experience of what it means when you hire a veteran, right? And to see what we bring to the table and hopefully connect the dots mentally going, hey, wait, we've got a great asset in, this vet that we just hired and they came with money. Maybe we should be hiring more veterans. So, from that perspective, I was like, we've got to figure out a way to solve to that. And then, again, as somebody who's managed P&Ls for a lot of my, post-military career, it's, hey, this is what drives our company, right? We need P&L, we need money, and recruiting is expensive, right? We know that labor is if not the largest line item on our budget, it's number 2, right? It's expensive, right? So if there is a way that I can help companies with this so that they can get money back into their budget and then use it for growth and, again, hopefully connecting the dots so they get excited about hiring more of our brothers and sisters, then I want to try to create a solution to help with that. So, just to kind of give a quick, end to end on the 98% of the way it happens today. So I'm a veteran, I come in and I interview with you. And during that process, I self-identify as a veteran. And you're a company that's savvy to the program, right? So you say, hey, great. We know that Craig comes with a tax credit. And you go through your normal iterations of making decisions on narrowing down your candidates, and we get down to the final 3. And I'm one of them, right? And so you kind of look at the 3 and you go, okay, these guys are all pretty equal. Craig comes with a tax credit, the other 2 don't. Maybe let's hire Craig, right? Mm-hmm. So you call me up and you say, hey, Craig, love to have you join our team, give me a job offer. And oh, by the way, as part of this process, we need you to complete some paperwork that proves to the government that we hire veterans. And so I go, okay, great. I'm happy to do that. I fill out my survey, my side of the paperwork, sign it, give it back to you. You handle your side of the paperwork, sign it, and then you either try to brave the waters and file it on your own, or you use a consultant to handle all that for you. And in that circumstance, the program worked the way it was kind of intended. You took the incentive from the government to choose me as a veteran who has historically faced barriers to employment as a target group. And so you got the tax credit, I got hired, win for everybody involved. But the other piece of that was kind of my side, right? So I didn't know about the program. You did. We completed paperwork at the same time. And in that circumstance, I didn't get to bring it to you or bring it to the other interviews that I'd been on. And so I didn't get to leverage the program to help me get employed. And so that's, from a veteran side, that was where I, started focusing first, was how do I help them leverage this? And then as I started to build the platform to help the employers, it's okay, now I've got a way to help the veterans get pre-certified. We offer the only online service to date where veterans and military transitioning service members can anywhere in the world come in and complete their side of the paperwork, get pre-certified. We process that with the government, send it back to them so that they can, and then give them some additional tools when they're in interviews to be able to present this without having to fully articulate the program to potential employers, so they can come back and see their e-profile and learn more about the program. And, again, potentially leverage it for the very first time.
Mm-hmm.
And on the employer side, obviously building out a platform to be able to help them with some of the complexities that we can talk about here in a few minutes. And then marry the two, right? So I've got vets that are pre-certified looking for jobs. I've got employers that are taking advantage of this program, see all of the values of hiring from our community, and then marrying the two. And
Right.
so that's kind of how it all came together, was making sure that both sides of the equation can leverage this program to their advantage. And at the end of it all, we know that our companies are going to win, our veterans are going to win. And ultimately what I like to see is I want companies so excited about what they get from a veteran, including the money they can put in their P&L, that they get so excited and build veteran hiring initiatives. And that helps my brothers and sisters as they're transitioning in the future.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think that one thing that is kind of important in this too is to note that for companies, we're not talking about a couple $100s. We're talking about potentially thousands of dollars per hiring instance.
Yeah.
And so if you're hiring a number of veterans, you're looking at, potentially thousands and thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars as a tax credit coming back to you. So is there anything else in addition to just this kind of cash thing that, that companies get out of being WOTC companies? I mean, for looking for these veterans, can you break down sort of the numbers for us? What does that actually look like for somebody?
Sure. So, let's start from the top. I mean, the program is designed with the sole intent to provide incentive to businesses to hire from target groups that have historically faced barriers to employment. And veterans was the very first target group that created this program. And in the decades since then, they've refined it and they've kind of changed the name of the program a few times. It's funny how it was set up to sunset, it feels like, in every new administration, so that they can put their name on it and put their check mark that, hey, I did something great for veterans and other target groups. But they've added in other target groups in addition to veterans that we also help our companies with. But veterans being kind of the primary source of it. The program's incentives are, as you mentioned, significant. So as a veteran and being part of that target group, this is a program that follows me my entire working career. So the largest incentives are put on veterans and military that are transitioning out, because that's the time that we have the hardest time finding new employment, because of the correlation and trying to translate my military experience into words that a civilian corporation would go, I see there's a match here, I see value in this enough to have an interview and look at this candidate as a potentially viable new hire. But we know until recently, the veteran unemployment levels were higher than most groups out there, just because of that translation challenge. So it's based on unemployment outside of transition. So the first category starts at 4 weeks of unemployment, and it does not have to be consecutive in the past year. So if I have at least 4 weeks where I was not getting paid by a company, I come with a tax credit, and that's $2,400. Once I reach the 6-month level, it's either $5,600 or $9,600, depending on whether or not I have a service-connected disability rating of at least 10%. And for the employers who are thinking disability, don't think about accommodation necessarily. I could roll my ankle in boot camp, and when I got out, my ankle looks a little funny and has a little less function than it did when I got in, and I could come out with 10%. So it doesn't mean that I can't do my job and I'm not a valuable asset to you that you've got to make a ton of accommodations for. It just means that my ankle looks funny, right? So 64% of the military folks that are transitioning today are coming out with at least a 10% disability rating. And it could be something that's totally non-military related. I could be in a car accident when I'm in the military and got whiplash and have some neck problems. I still come out with a disability rating because it happened while I was in the military.
Right.
So there is a significant amount, $5,600 or $9,600 for every veteran that you hire. And that's the level that you get when they transition. So the way that the states validate unemployment is they go to their state tax and wage system. And for everybody who's doing what you need to be doing as a company, and you're submitting that stuff up to your state, quarterly, based on Social Security number, they would look up my social and they would go, okay, are there gaps of employment in this past 12 months? The DOD does not report to state tax and wage systems. So I'm not in there when I'm transitioning. And it's, again, program intent. We want them to get the 56 or 9,600 when we leave. So we've been considered unemployed from a program perspective the entire time we've been in the military.
Okay.
But there are no caps on that for you as a company on the amount of tax credits that you can claim in any given year. So you could hire one veteran or you could hire 1,000 veterans and claim tax credits on everybody who qualifies. The only caveat to that is that if I have more tax credits available to me as a company than what I owe the government at the end of the year, they're not going to cut me a check for the rest. So if I owe 40 grand in taxes and I have $75,000 in tax credits, they're going to take $35,000 and roll it over to next year. So I start the year $35,000 ahead in what I owe the government for taxes. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty significant. I mean, you think about that. If you built a veteran hiring initiative and we're hiring multiple veterans a year, how much impact getting that money back into your P&L would be?
Yeah, that's huge, especially for, a lot of small to medium-sized companies who are doing, they're hiring 5 to 10 people a year. But that type of money can be significant over the course of a year as well to them. So
very much so.
So should a company then kind of preparing to hire, let's say there is a veteran hiring initiative, should they do any paperwork ahead of the point where they have one of these, a veteran who's qualified at the end and they're kind of looking at them, or should they wait until, should they go ahead and do it and get everything moving and ready for that, or should they wait until they have a veteran that they are looking at hiring in order, before they start putting together all that paperwork and really reaching out to you or someone like you that can help them with all of that, the mess of government paperwork?
Yeah, so good question. So, it kind of depends on the size of your company and the life cycle that you're typically in for hiring, right? So if you're hiring one person a year, I'd say, before you get ready to make that next hire, that you need to kind of get prepared for this. If you're hiring people on a regular basis, then if you do not have a tax credit solution in place today, then you need to get it done as soon as you get off of this, our session here today, primarily because of the way that the program is set up. I alluded earlier to the complexity of the program and some of the challenges that employers face in making sure that they get the credit and that this comes to fruition for them. So the program is, because of its intent, is designed to incentivize you as a business to hire veterans. It is a hiring tax incentive, not a I've hired, go back and get my money later, right? So they want this to be part of your business decision. And so they've built the program in such a way that you have to do paperwork on the front side on the veteran or other target group before, no later than the day of job offer. So if you think about that from a process perspective, if I wait until I've hired somebody and go, oh yeah, that's right, we get a tax credit for this person, it's too late. Right. You lost it. And so having a solution in place, it's imperative that you do it on the front side. And so that's one of the primary things that our platform, our program does for our employers. We help you build it into that process so that all of those I's are dotted and T's are crossed and boxes are checked along the way at the appropriate time so that we can realize the tax credit at the end for your company. And so I would say, you know, again, if you're only hiring one person a year, you know, you can wait, right? If you want to. But I will tell you that, you know, with the cost of our program for employers, I mean, one tax credit, even if it's a $2,400 credit, is going to pay after fees 7 years of our service. So, you know, it is not an expensive service. So, you know, there's really no reason that you wouldn't put one in place today, so you don't forget about it. So, but that's, you know, hopefully that answered the question on the timing side. But there are, you know, there are complexities that come with that government paperwork, and you know, nobody likes to do government paperwork. Not even us. We don't like to do it either, but we do it so you don't have to.
Right.
And you know, we operate in all 50 states to make that process easy if you're spread across multiple states, so you're not, you know, having to deal with multiple state agencies and the way that they do it versus the way that the other state does it and things of that nature.
So can you walk us through real quick just the process? What can
Sure.
companies expect? What do they need to prepare for? What kind of paperwork do they need to kind of get pulled together? Because, you know, if they do wait till they have someone who's qualified and they can't, you know, they can't make the job offer until everything's in place, what are the
Right.
timelines? What are they looking at?
Well, so I'll approach it from two different angles. Number one, I'll approach it as if you're going to try to brave the waters on your own. Number one, you need to make sure that you have all of the forms available for, you know, potential candidates, and then you know, implementing it into your process so that once you know, identify candidates, that you're getting them the paperwork so they can complete it and they get the date time stamp on there that they've completed it before the day of job offer. Again, from a program perspective, again, this is a pretty important thing to put into that business decision, because, you know, if you're waiting until, okay, I've identified the candidate that I'm going to hire and now I'm going to have them complete the paperwork, then it wasn't really part of the business decision. I mean, it may have been, you know, internally, but from a paperwork perspective, you know, you're kind of at the tail end of it. So you need to have the forms available to have those candidates complete those surveys. And then post that, you need to make sure that you're completing your side of the paperwork after the date of hire quickly, and that you're getting it off within the required deadlines, because you have 28 days for it to hit the state for processing. If it gets there on day 29, they go declined and it's gone. You also need to educate yourself on making sure you know how to complete the paperwork correctly, because if you miss a box or you make a mistake, those small teams don't have the time to pick up the phone and go, hey, Jordanelle, you know, I saw what you processed on Craig. There's a box missing. What was it supposed to be? They just go declined and they move on to the next one. And then you just lost a significant tax credit because the paperwork was incorrect. And then you need to be prepared on how to track how that tax credit is going to grow from both a wage perspective and the work requirements that need to happen in order for that veteran to, or other target group, to turn into a realized tax credit. So that's kind of, you know, just working down the complexities of the program. From our side, should you choose to use VTC as your partner in this, we make it extremely easy. So getting registered is as easy as going to our website at veterantaxcredits.com, going and do your education piece through the material that's there, and then registering as an employer. This platform is built as software to make your lives easy. You know, again, being in, you know, the HR community, I built this platform thinking about the end user, because if it's challenging, if it's burdensome, we're not going to do it, because we've got 5 people standing at our door that need to talk to us right now, and there's just too much going on. So I literally, it is a turnkey system that requires very little data entry and administration, and the system prompts you throughout the entire process. It's built like an applicant tracking system. So for the smaller companies that can't afford the big name applicant tracking systems and are still doing things on Google Drive or Excel spreadsheets, this will give you an applicant tracking system that you can use. It's built to kind of follow that logic, right? From sourcing through credit fruition and everything that happens in between. So it starts with the ability to source candidates through our database, because you remember part of what I do is I help veterans get pre-certified for the tax credit. So I have veterans in my database that are actively looking for jobs that come with a tax credit. And so you'll be able to source potentially some candidates through that database, and by doing keyword searches and things of that nature. And then you also have the ability to load in candidates from additional channels that you're using to source candidates. And so what we recommend to our employer clients is you integrate this as part of your interview process. So, you get 100 resumes, you narrow it down to the top 20 that you're going to interview. And then at that point, you either use our system to pump out a system generated email to all of those candidates, or you can copy a link that's specific for your company's portal that you can embed in an email or embed in your own applicant tracking system. If you have one, you just create an additional paragraph after they complete their application saying, please complete the following survey below to check against the Department of Labor tax credit program. And none of your answers are shared with us as a company, only the results. And they click on that link, they complete the tax credit paperwork, it comes back to your portal, and then you see in a list of all of those candidates who comes with the tax credit and how much for each of them. And then you just go through your normal hiring iterations. Again, you narrow it down, and then you come back to the system when you're at your finalist and go, okay, so here's our top 3 or our top 2. Do any of them come with a tax credit that we need to consider, right? And then if they do, and you decide that's the candidate that you want to hire, then you just go back into the system and click hire. You enter in hire date and some other things that we need to process the paperwork. And then from there, the system takes over. So we start tracking everything that needs to be tracked. On the backside, we're filing the paperwork with the state on your behalf. We become the IRS agent of record with the state for your company for this and this only, which gives us the ability to work with them. And then, as those requirements, as the system identifies those requirements should have been met, it sends you an alert that just says, hey, Jordana just met her first work requirement. Please go in the system and confirm. And you just check with payroll system. Yep, she's at the required hours, click met, and then that's it. So it's very minimal. And then it starts tracking the next thing. And it kind of just works down the line of the things that need to be met until all conditions are met. And then the credit is, the final thing is getting approval from the state agency. And then once that has happened, then the credit has come to fruition. So it's really, really simple, very little work on your side. At the end of the year, we wrap up all of the tax credits that you've earned for the year, put it on the required IRS documentation. We become the record keeper for the IRS. We give you that form, you give it to your CPA. Here's 50 grand. We don't have to pay in taxes this year. CPA goes great, and they implement it into your tax return. But as soon as that credit comes to fruition and we know that you've earned it, all the conditions have been met and it's been approved, at that point, you could put that money back into your P&L. Because if you're doing what you should be doing as a company, you're doing tax set-asides every month or every quarter, right? So if I know I'm setting aside 40 grand of taxes every quarter and I just earn $9,600 in tax credits, then that's $9,600 I don't have to set aside next quarter, and I can put that back in my P&L and start using it right away. Right. So, even though we file every year, once a year, we can realize that really quickly. So the employer side is really built to make it super simple on you. And then we do all the heavy lifting so that to take the mystery and headache out of this program and put money back in your P&L so you get excited about hiring more veterans or other target groups, because we will handle any target group and that's, that's a good point that I want to bring up, because though this is kind of built around the veteran unemployment side and helping from a marketing perspective, veterans, when we implement this into the hiring process, the other target groups that you would never know you hired, like somebody who may be on food stamps, you hire a single parent that's got 5 kids, they may be on food stamps to help the kids. I mean, you can't ask that in the interview. Hey, you look a little rough around the edges. Are you on food stamps? I mean, legally, we can't do that, right? So you may be hiring people in these groups. Somebody who's on Social Security disability, other groups that potentially may be in your roles that you just walk away from dollars, and it's like throwing money into the fireplace because you're giving it to the IRS every year and you don't need to.
Right.
So
That's a great point.
solve them for you.
That's a great point, is to actually creating this as part of your business plan allows you to take advantage of all of those different things, not just the veterans on the rolls. But all right, well, last question. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that companies really need to know about, tax credits and hiring veterans?
Well, I mean, I could go all day about hiring veterans, right? Because I mean, I have a bias there and I know what we bring to the table. But if our goal in this program is to help you realize the tax credit for the first time, right? For hiring a veteran or another target group, but ultimately veterans is, kind of where it starts for us. And then connect the dots mentally, right? I don't care if it's the very first veteran you've ever hired or you've got 100 of them on your team. I want you to get the tax credit for the first time and get that money back in your P&L. And then hopefully, if you're a company that hasn't hired a lot of veterans, that you can connect the dots from both a skill set, from a leadership perspective, from an asset to your company perspective, and obviously the dollars help the P&L so that you think about veterans the next time you're looking for filling an open position. The other thing I would say is that, obviously if you don't have a tax credit solution in place today and you're hiring people, you're walking away from P&L. So find one, whether it's me or any other company out there. There's no other company that does it the way that we do it in marrying vets with companies, but there are other tax credit processing companies out there that can at least handle the paperwork for you. So find that. And then lastly, I'd say is use the coupon code RECON, all caps, as you're enrolling in this program, because you will get a discount against the membership, so the subscription for doing so. And, again, it's always good to save money. So use the coupon code RECON when you're registering with us. From there, we will reach out to you and set up software training. Software training takes 30 minutes. I mean, it's very logical. It's very easy. And then from there, literally, we are ripping and roaring and taking care of this for you. And it will be out of sight, out of mind for the most part once we implement it the right way. And, when you come back and at the end of the year with money that you can tell your CFO or your CEO, hey, we saved 50 grand in tax credits this year. That's going to be a good thing for everybody involved. Absolutely.
Well, Craig, I really appreciate you being on with us today and presenting at the Vet Summit. You guys have been a great partner for Recon as well. So we're most appreciative that you could make it today. And if anybody wants to get in touch with you, learn more about what you're doing, or just reach out, see your website, where do they need to go?
So the website is easy. It's Veteran Tax Credits, so that's plural.com. From there, you can learn all about the WOTC program and the Veteran Tax Credit program, as well as about the services that we offer. And again, you can register, and it's extremely easy to do that. And then for, if you want to send an email, there's a link on the site, but if info@veterantaxcredits.com, we'll also send an email to us, and we will get back with you and can schedule a software demo so you can see how simple it is to implement, and answer any questions that you may have.
Well, perfect. Well, thank you once again for joining us. I really appreciate it. And for our hiring companies who managed to make it to the Vet Summit, thank you so much for coming and for being part of this session. Have a great rest of the day. Thanks so much.